And I'm Chairman J.D. Neely, and I'd like to welcome you and everyone to the August 2024 meeting of the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission. And I call this meeting to order. If you would please join me as we stand for the prayer and the pledge. Mr. Tim Crumpton, would you lead us in prayer?
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we do thank you so much, Lord, for your blessings and the freedoms we have in this country. We thank you for those who have given their lives or have been willing, Lord, to give their lives for the freedoms we still have. And we thank you most of all for Jesus, who your only begotten Son you gave, who paid the price for our sins through death, burial, and resurrection. We thank you for our great state, Lord, and the natural resources you've given us. How blessed we are, Lord. Never gets old to drive through the hills. And Lord, just see the blessings. Lord, we pray for Director Booth and these commissioners. Lord, you'll give them wisdom. Lord, pray for their families. And Lord, there's so many workers in this state preserving what you've given to us. And we thank you, Lord, for the law enforcement, the game wardens. Lord, be with them, protect them and their families. And Lord, we just pray, Lord, that you would bless this meeting. And Lord, we do even thank you, Lord, for whoever you laid on their heart, Lord, to give us an early buck season. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Now, please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, again, welcome everyone. We have a few guests. As always, Wild Man back there, welcome. Good to have you with us. Ronnie Ritter, if y'all have noticed a few snack sticks going around, I knew Ronnie was going to be in the house when I saw these. Ronnie, great to have you with us. Good to hear from you. We have a new guest with us, Josh Stewart. Raise your hand. Josh is our new liaison from Governor Sanders' office, and first week on the job. We had him with us yesterday, and it was good to have you at committee yesterday and again today in our full meeting. And thank you again, Pastor Tim Crumpton, for leading us in that prayer. At this point, we're ready for approval of our agenda. The first matter is approval of today's agenda. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda as presented? If not, can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
All right, I need a second. Second. Thank you. Any opposed? All in favor? Aye. Motion is approved. Next, we need the approval of the official commission meeting notes from the July 18th and the 25th, 2024 meetings. Any additions or deletions to these notes?
Move to approve.
I got a motion to approve by Anne Marie, and need a second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Tappan. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? This motion is approved as well. Next, we're going to get into some staff presentations, and we've got a good presentation coming up from Matt Horton with our aquatic nuisance species issues in Arkansas. Matt, we're going to give you the floor.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to come give y'all an update on the aquatic nuisance species issues that have been going on around the state, in addition to a lot of good work that our program's been doing over the last year or more. The aquatic nuisance species program is relatively new to the commission. A little less than 3 years we've had a functional program. My job as ANS coordinator is to coordinate activities that prevent the introduction, establishment, and spread of aquatic nuisance species in our state. In addition to me, we've got a full-time invasive carp biologist, Jimmy Barnett, who leads our invasive carp removal program, and he's got 5 part-time technicians that assist him with those efforts. I've also got a part-time administrative assistant, Nikki Allred, who helps me with our new invasive carp harvest incentive program. And prior to 2021, when our program started, we only had one person in the state that was dedicated to aquatic nuisance species management, and that's Jimmy Barnett. That position started in 2015, and it all came about through the adoption of our state aquatic nuisance species management plan, which provides a framework for the management of aquatic nuisance species in our state, and also provides us opportunity to get federal funding to implement the objectives and strategies of that plan. Over the years, over 30 aquatic nuisance species have been introduced into Arkansas waters. Currently, around 90% of those have established populations across the state. These include plants, algae, fish, mussels, snails, crayfish, and other organisms. We've got a complete list of these species on our aquatic nuisance species website, but I wanted to show that this is an issue that's not isolated to one region of Arkansas. It's not limited to our rivers or lakes. It impacts all waters of the state, both public and private. This is a distribution map that shows all of the aquatic nuisance species occurrences that we've been able to document over the years through both public reporting and agency reports. All the different dots represent different species. For example, those blue dots on the eastern side of the state are northern snakehead occurrences. Some species, such as invasive carp, are a top priority because of their significant impacts that they pose, not only to our recreational and commercial fisheries, but also to our local economy and different industries in the state, such as tourism. Invasive carp is a term that's used to describe 4 fish species, also called Asian carp, that were introduced in the United States as biological control agents back in the 1970s. These include silver, bighead, black, and grass carp. They were unfortunately escaped captivity and now spread throughout the Mississippi River Basin. Silver and bighead carp in particular are major species of concern. They're very prolific. They're planktivores. They feed on phytoplankton and zooplankton, which is microscopic organisms that serve as the foundation of the food web in aquatic environments. So they can significantly impact the diversity and abundance of our native fishes. Also, silver carp have a unique jumping behavior when startled by boat motors. That's why they're mostly recognized by the public. Even though silver carp and bighead carp you see there in the center look very similar. So they also pose a hazard to boaters. The map on the right there shows the distribution of silver and bighead carp highlighted in red. Those are all the major river systems where those species are present, with the exception of the purple area highlighted on the upper Arkansas River. Silver carp have not made it above the Lake Dardanelle Dam, but bighead carp have been found all the way up the Arkansas River into Oklahoma. We've also got black carp. These species were brought over to control snails that are intermediate hosts of the catfish trematode and other parasites that impact the commercial aquaculture of catfish. They have continued to increase their distribution throughout the Mississippi River Basin, and within the last year, or within the last 2 years, have spread up into the White River and from Pool 2 and the Arkansas River all the way up to Pool 8. Our major concern with these are their impact on our native mussel species, since they're one of the most imperiled taxa in our state. So in 2020, we received federal grant funding became available to states in the lower Mississippi River Basin to control invasive carp. And we capitalized on that opportunity and got funding to create what we call our invasive carp removal program. We initiated removals in October of 2021. The program is led by Jimmy Barnett, our invasive carp biologist. And again, he's got up to five technicians that operate 2 boat crews, and they go out 4 days a week and catch and remove invasive carp, primarily from the Arkansas and the White River systems. Those are the leading edge of expansion in Arkansas for those two species, and they're also the river systems that have the greatest abundance of silver and bighead carp. We established a home base for them central to their removal locations at the Waukesha Wildlife Management Area. And they're primarily using commercial gear such as gill nets to catch and remove these fish. In the last 2.5 years, they've been able to remove over 340,000 pounds of invasive carp. Historically in Arkansas, we haven't had any commercial markets for these fish. They have a low market value, and there hasn't been a lot of market development for the use of these fish, especially in the lower Mississippi River Basin, but that is changing. There's a lot of growing interest in the use of these fish for various products, from protein powder to for pet feeds to dog treats, bait for crab and lobster traps and crayfish, as well as for human consumption. So we're going to be shifting from utilizing our commercial harvest program, our in-house agency removals, and focusing more on commercial harvest moving forward. I wanted to show this map on the right. It shows the distribution of abundance of silver carp in the Arkansas and White River systems. That's a heat map, so each one of those red dots are locations where our crew have gone out and removed silver carp, and it's associated with their mean catch. You see highlighted in yellow the higher abundance in the White River system. They're unimpeded with dams, so it's a more open system. When the Arkansas River, the lock and dams are slowing the upstream movement of silver and bighead carp, but also limiting their reproduction. Last year, we received an additional $900,000 and $500,000 in federal grant funds to implement a invasive carp harvest incentive program. And so our goal is to develop a commercial harvest-based control program to increase our ability to remove a large amount of biomass of these fish from our river systems. The major limitations to commercial harvest is available markets, our fishers' availability to processing facilities that can handle these fish, as well as the low market value. And so we've developed an incentive program paying 18 cents a pound for invasive carp that are harvested by our commercial fishers and sold for some valuable use. That's on top of whatever they can sell them for. In addition, we're providing our commercial fishers that enroll some startup fishing supplies to offset the cost of re-gearing to go after these fish and to help new fishers get into the business and catch and remove invasive carp. And this includes things like gill net webbing and rope to build their own nets. Also, we're providing some limited fish acquisition support in the form of supplies such as insulated containers and scales to increase businesses' ability to receive fish from our commercial fishers, and also provide convenient access for places where our commercial fishers can sell their invasive carp. They can't be transporting them a long distance or they'll go bad. So if someone's catching these fish, they need to be within an hour or hour and a half of where they're going to be selling them, or they can't keep them fresh for market use. Also, we've partnered with Arkansas Economic Development Commission. They're providing business development support to anybody, any business or entity that's wanting to develop a processing facility or develop market products through manufacturing in our state. We've got more information on this program on our website at the link there. So this program started in January. So we're only a few months into it, and we've been able to enroll 35 commercial fishers. We've got a lot of interest in our commercial fishermen in participating in this program and helping us control invasive carp. They understand the threats and the issues, and they want to be able to help. And so we've given out the startup fishing gear. We've provided some totes and containers to 2 local fish markets that have started buying carp. and also scales to facilitate those sales. We're also conducting some random market inspections to make sure that the sales are valid, and to make sure that they're following the guidelines of our program. Since February, which is when we first enrolled the commercial fishermen, they've removed 265,000 pounds of invasive carp. We've got enough money to provide incentives for 1.9 million pounds, and there's definitely a need for much more than that. There's millions of pounds of these fish in our river systems. But this is a great start just within a few months getting this going. The biggest holdup is supply chain development, access to buyers. But every month that's gone by, there's more and more interest. Businesses are looking at ways that they can set up a process for creating products out of these fish. And I see a lot of opportunity here in the near future. So we're going to continue to develop our commercial harvest incentive program. But we're also going to be converting from agency removals over to monitoring and research. We're hiring a new invasive carp biologist. That job position just posted this week, and we're very excited about that. This person is going to help monitor impacts of commercial harvest on the abundance and distribution of invasive carp, as well as helping inform the timing, location, and magnitude of control efforts to increase our efficiency in managing these species in the future. So not only do we have problems with invasive carp, I just spoke a lot about that, but there's several other species that are well established in our state that could cause significant issue. One of them are northern snakeheads. This is a fish native to Southeast Asia, brought over into the United States. And we had them in Arkansas in the early 2000s as fish food in commercial aquaculture. Unfortunately, they escaped into the wild. The red star there indicates where we first observed northern snakehead in 2008 in the Piney Creek drainage. Despite our best efforts, we did an intensive eradication effort in 2009 of the entire Piney Creek drainage, spending over $500,000 to try to eradicate these things. Unfortunately, they had made it into another drainage and now have spread throughout the Delta region of our state. They've also, in the last couple of years, made it up into Missouri, down into Louisiana, and over into Mississippi. So they're continuing to spread. It's very difficult once an invasive species is introduced to actually control it. And northern snakeheads are a prime example of that because of the habitats that they prefer and the systems that they're in. The entire eastern part of the state, it pretty much has water connectivity during most of the year. So it's impossible to isolate these species. We've been working with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and USGS to validate and develop sampling procedures for the use of environmental DNA or eDNA to track the distribution of northern snakeheads in the lower Mississippi River Basin. And so that's something that we've partnered with them and are working with the Missouri Department of Conservation and their efforts to try to slow the spread and control northern snakeheads that have recently made it into their state. We've also got several aquatic invasive plants that are causing issues. In particular, our floating aquatic plants like alligator weed, water hyacinth, and giant salvinia. Floating aquatic plants, these invasives are particularly a problem because they completely cover the surface of the water, blocking oxygen transfer into the water, reducing dissolved oxygen. They can cause fish kills, completely block off boating and recreation in the water, and they have really no benefit to native wildlife. Giant salvinia, a floating aquatic fern, is one of our greatest concerns. Since 2017, we've had 7 introductions into our state. Right now, we have 2 established populations in Lakes Columbia and Erling, highlighted with those green stars. We've been lucky to be able to catch early and eradicate all of the other introductions that occurred, including in Lake Millwood, Smith Park Lake, Mercer Bayou, and this year, last month, we had 2 introductions. So one in the Illinois Bayou where someone was actually culturing this plant and intentionally releasing it into the bayou, and the other down at Clear Lake, just south of Felsenthal, where a boater, that's the picture of the trailer there, had just come from Louisiana where they fished in Lake D'Arbonne, and which that was a month ago. And they launched their boat, didn't know giant salvinia was stuck between their boat and the bunks, and there was still green viable giant salvinia on their trailer that had been there for a month. And so this is a major pathway in which these invasive species are moving, boat trailers and recreational equipment, and that's a prime example of how hard it is to keep these things from moving around, and the importance of us educating the public about clean draining and drying their recreational equipment. We try to utilize as many control options as possible. When dealing with invasive aquatic plants, we primarily rely on chemical or herbicide control. I think in the last 6 years, our fisheries division spent around $1 million just on herbicide application to control mainly those 3 species that I just mentioned. But we also use physical control, like management drawdowns, to desiccate these plants and expose them to freezing temperatures. Also, actually going out and physically removing them during eradication events when there's a small population. And we use a lot of floating containment boom to exclude or contain plants like giant salvinia and water hyacinth to increase our other controls, physical removal or chemical herbicide application. Biological controls are fairly limited. They work for submerged aquatic plants. Grass carp are an example of that. But most of the insects that are successful at controlling these species in the warmer southern portions of the United States can't survive at our northern latitudes. So these plants are outpacing the ability of their biological controls from their native range in controlling them. And that's a major issue. So it really limits how many options we have to control these invasive plants when they're established. We continue to see an increase in new species introductions. In 2019, we had the first a report of mystery snails. And we're still kind of unsure which species they are. They're all very similar, Japanese or Chinese mystery snails. A major concern with them is their competition with native snails for food resources, but also the parasites and pathogens that they carry, not only that can be transmitted to our native wildlife, but also to humans. Cuban bulrush was found in Lake Erling. It's a floating invasive aquatic plant that creates these mats that are impenetrable, completely block boating and use of the waterway. It actually grows on other floating aquatic plants. So where we have giant salvinia or water hyacinth, we're likely to get this other invader. Luckily, it hasn't become a major issue yet, and we've been staying on top of it. And then this year, we had a new one, giant apple snails. These, thanks to the help of our fish pathologist, Kelly Winningham, she went out and helped us in starting to monitor crawfish used for human consumption because of the impact that giant apple snails are having on the crawfish industry in Louisiana and other states. We knew that it was a potential pathway. And back in April, we found in the first shipments that we investigated giant apple snails that originated from Louisiana. And the major concern with these are they are herbivores. They feed on aquatic plants, and they're also a rice crop pest. They're causing millions of dollars in damages to aquaculture and agriculture industries in southern states, and they also carry parasites that can be transmitted to humans, including the rat lungworm. In addition to species like giant apple snails, there's several others that are knocking on our doorstep, including round gobies, quagga mussels, and crested floating heart. You can see the distribution maps provided by the USGS. There at the bottom shows how close they are. All of those are within a couple hundred miles of our border or closer. And there are natural, in the case of quagga mussels and round gobies, natural pathways through the Mississippi River that they can get into our state without us, with very little we can do about it. There's also thousands of species that have been, that are used in the pet trade around the world. And we don't know exactly which ones of those could potentially become invasive and cause harm here in our state. So we've started work with our Fish and Wildlife Co-op unit at the University of Arkansas to develop a customized risk screening workflow and risk assessment framework for us to identify the species that could pose the greatest risk to our state if introduced. And we can add those species to what we call a watch list, or species of greatest concern, for monitoring and things like preventative regulations, adding them to our prohibited species list to try to keep them from getting into our state. It's also important not only for us to know what species threats we need to be aware of, but the pathways in which they can be introduced into our state. The most common are them hitching a ride on boats, trailers, and recreational equipment, including fishing equipment and waterfowl hunting equipment like duck decoys. Also the movement and release of live bait, and a lot of invasive species that are now in the United States are here because they were released either through the release of unwanted aquarium or water garden pets and plants and animals. And so that's a major pathway they can get in. But they can also move through natural pathways, moving through our water systems, wind and water current, fragments of plants, seeds, zebra mussel veligers, larvae that can be transferred in water, as well. Wildlife can also move them around. So once we know what species that we need to be aware of, and we know the pathways that they can be introduced into our state, that helps us prevent new species introductions. And it's extremely important for us to increase public awareness, not only to inform them what species to look out for and to report them to us so that we can track their distribution and respond in a timely manner to contain and eradicate a new introduction if it occurs, but also to provide information on what people can do to help prevent these species from being spread around, such as drying their equipment and providing alternatives to people releasing their unwanted pets and animals into the wild. We've picked up on our outreach efforts and education efforts over the last year. We've started a marketing campaign using social media ads. Starting next month, we're going to be running ads monthly, targeting different pathway users, boaters, anglers, waterfowl hunters, and aquarium and water garden hobbyists, and encouraging and providing information on preventative behaviors. We've increased the signage at our access areas to make people aware of species like giant salvinia and to report them if they see them. Provided some training opportunities to staff. And not only that, but we're also providing tools for the public to use that are free to help them clean, drain, and dry their equipment. This year we installed the second CD3 watercraft cleaning station at Lake Columbia to help prevent the spread of giant salvinia on boats and trailers. Our first one was installed in January of 2023. These are really unique systems that have proven to be very valuable in preventing the spread of aquatic nuisance species. They're solar powered, they require no utilities, and they're user operated. Someone doesn't have to be there to help people clean, drain, and dry their boats. They also serve as a kiosk, informational kiosk for people to increase awareness of these issues. And since we installed these, over 500 user sessions have been documented. So they are being used by our anglers and boaters, and just preventing the spread of giant salvinia on one trailer to a new water body pays for itself. These stations cost about $40,000, but the amount of money that we spend controlling giant salvinia if it gets into a water body is exponentially higher than that. We've also provided heated pressure washers to our staff at all of our regional and field offices, in addition to our hatcheries, to make sure that our staff has the appropriate equipment to decontaminate their boats, trailers, and research equipment, to make sure that while we're doing our activities, we're not contributing to the spread of invasive species. And we've also acquired a lot of rapid response equipment to make sure that we're ready for the next giant Salvinia invasion, including containment boom and spray equipment. I'm gonna conclude with this. This is a classic invasion curve, which demonstrates how management costs significantly increase as following the introduction of an invasive species, and it spreads over the landscape over time. Unfortunately, right now, species like silver carp, we are over on the right side of that. We're having to spend a large amount of cost just to mitigate their impacts. But we have a lot of opportunity to help prevent new species introductions, as well as increase our efficiency in managing existing populations. It's not a matter of if, it's when we're going to have new species introduced, and it's going to be critically important moving forward that our agency prioritizes invasive species management to make sure that we have the appropriate resources and measures in place to meet these threats and protect our wildlife and their habitats.
Wow. Matt, I've seen through my term, several reports on invasive species and fish and things like that. But after your report, I certainly feel like we're heading in the right direction. Great measures and steps that we're going to. You know, when we often think and I'm asked, well, what all does Game and Fish do? And so much of our public just think that we're hook and bullet and you know, monitoring the hunting and fishing of the world. But you know, clearly right here, we're the front line in defense of invasive species, and so many of our public that are listening in, I hope they realize the importance at Game and Fish and the role we play to try to stop so many of these things that we have no control over. They got introduced years ago from just some accident or some by design, but usually just by the steady progression of that species into an environment that it was not intended to be here. Commissioners, questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I had a couple of questions. Hey, Matt, great job, great work. I don't know that you get enough credit for how vitally important you and your team's work is to our state and our resources. If you go to other states and deal with silver carp, it's an eye-opener of how invasive it can be and how much it can impact the stream. Two questions. One, are we still confident, or what is our level of confidence that the reason we don't experience this above Batesville and the White River is it still because of water temperatures? We still feel like that is the barrier?
Are you talking about for invasive carp?
Right.
Carp? Well, I mean, they're just slowly expanding the range. We have found them above the dam at Batesville,
Okay.
but in very low abundance. And so it's just the further upstream you get, the less adequate the habitat is going to be for those species. But you will see if the water conditions are right, upstream movement, especially during the spring when they're making spawning runs up the Black River and the upper White River into those sections. So even though it may not be good, that section of the river may not be great for them long term as habitat to be in year round, but it could be utilized for them for spawning habitat to make sure that there's enough river miles there to have successful reproduction. And that's something that we're currently investigating right now with the ongoing research project through University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff.
So I would think water temperature would be one thing. It's a barrier. The closer it gets to the dam, the second might be the closer, of course, you get in the first 20 miles of the dam is in minimum flow or no generation. I would have to think that absolutely devastates their spawning areas. They can't live in real shallow water like that.
Well, they can handle the shallow water, but the cold water temperature is going to be prohibitive, and there's not as many. Again, they're planktivores, so
Yeah.
and they also don't like current. So when they're in the river systems, they use the main channel to move around, but they're primarily going to be occupying the backwater habitats. So that's where we see them the most, is sections of the rivers or larger river systems where there's adequate backwater habitat, where they have a lot of food, your plankton that can grow without getting flushed out. There's more food resources in those areas than there is in the upper reaches of those rivers.
Okay, and last question. So exploring the products that they're considering developing with these, any insight into that as to what
Yep.
industries are looking to do? Is it dog food? Is it,
Well, right now, it's everything. The problem is there's just not a big human consumption market in the United States because of the name of these fish. A lot of people don't have a positive association with fish that are named carp, so that's a hurdle to get over. In addition, the fillets of your bighead and silver carp have a lot of small bones in them, so it's a little difficult to process those bones out and make a product that people here in the United States are more receptive to eating. But the folks are making different food products out of them for human consumption. A lot of that is export over to China, Indonesia, and other places. Here domestically, there's dog food, pet treats, making protein meal for agricultural feeds, and even things like using the skins for high-end leather products. So all these are fairly new markets that are being developed, and there's growing interest, and more businesses are building their capacity to do it. It's just taking a while to build that, and building the commercial fishing infrastructure across the Mississippi River Basin to handle removal of a meaningful volume of these fish.
okay. Well, hey, thanks, Kenny. Great job.
Yeah.
Matt, back to the eating. Director Booth whispered to me that he thinks that the snakehead eel tastes better than crappie. Now, that's...
Well, the snakeheads were brought over because they are good to eat, and that's why the aquaculture farm had those in the first place before they were prohibited by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service back in 2002. So they are good to eat. It's hard to develop any type of commercial harvest program for these because they prefer shallow backwater habitats and vegetation. They're not as high in abundance as fish species, schooling fish species like your silver carp. And so it's really challenging to find a viable control option for them. Yeah, they are good to eat. If someone catches them, we encourage people to eat them, but we also have a regulation that restricts possession. So if you do catch a northern snakehead, you've got to either sever the head or the gills from the body or eviscerate it to make sure that it's dead. They're obligate air breathers, so they breathe atmospheric oxygen, which gives them a competitive advantage over native fish species. And so they could live out of water as long as they stay moist for a few days. So we don't want someone to put them in a cooler and take them home and decide they don't want them and then throw them out because they could survive. And that's why we have that unique exception to our prohibited species code to make sure that people aren't moving them around.
Have you eaten one?
Oh, I've eaten several of them. They're
Okay.
delicious. Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah.
Chairman, I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
Matt, first of all, you're doing a fantastic job, and I'm from the area that the Asian carp are there, where it's prolific, the amount we have. I had heard something, and I wanted to see if there was any truth to it, but I'd been told that the Asian carp are really not breeding in the Arkansas River because they take around 40 to 45 miles of steady current for the eggs to hatch. Is that true?
So that's something that we're investigating right now. We've hypothesized that most of our fish originate from the Mississippi River. Mm-hmm. Now we do observe them spawning in the Arkansas and the St. Francis and the Mississippi River, or in the White River. But we haven't really been able to confirm whether they're recruiting, which means they're hatching and surviving to the first year within our waters and contributing to our population and not just getting flushed out in the Mississippi River. And so we've got an ongoing research project, as I mentioned, with UAPB, Dr. Steve Lockman, and he is looking at juvenile silver carp and bighead carp recruitment to identify those habitats in the lower Arkansas and White River where they could potentially be recruiting. It's important for us to know if that is occurring, then we know we have a source population, and that's where we need to target and focus our control efforts. Everything else would be a sink population that could be easily managed compared to a source population that is constantly getting replenished on an annual basis.
Yeah, because I've noticed a couple of different summers when it gets really, really hot, like in Morgan Point Lake, that we'll have a mass die-off of these Asian carp there. I mean, you know, literally hundreds of thousands of them.
Yeah, they have a really high metabolism, and most of these fish are very large, averaging 15 to 20 pounds in our waters. And when they congregate in large numbers in those shallow oxbows, when the water temperature gets really high, there's low oxygen, and they'll congregate in an area and use up that oxygen, stress out, and it'll cause a die basically because of low dissolved oxygen and their high oxygen demand because of their metabolism.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your team and all that you're doing.
Absolutely.
Right,
Mr. Chairman, one real quick. Matt, I noticed the other day at the hatchery at Hamilton, the signage, and I was curious, what is on the, is there an average of the species, you know, particularly the lifespan on a boat or a trailer? Does it vary? Is there a rule
How
of
long
thumb?
they could survive on it? It really depends. So for something like a zebra mussel, once they attach, as long as they stay moist and it's not really, really hot or below freezing, they could stay viable on there for, you know, weeks. Like what I said before, giant salvinia requires very little light and can remain alive, stuck between the bunks of a trailer for, you know, up to a month, depending on the temperature, and especially carpeted bunks. They retain more water, so helps something like that survive more. You know, it's going to depend on the species, but in general, it's anywhere from a week to a month.
Thank you.
Well, we've all seen the, you know, the maps of Arkansas and how all the tributaries from, gosh, half the United States seem to come right down to us and then focal on down into Louisiana, and you see all the streams and tributaries that come off of that and the lakes that we have. Arkansas truly is, we're blessed with some of the most miles of waterways of any state in the country, and so this is so important, the work you're doing and your team and all of the fisheries side. We can't commend you all enough, and thank you for this great report.
I appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity.
All right. All right, Director Booth, please deliver your report to us.
All right, good morning, everybody. Good to see you all here. A few quick shout outs that I want to give. I see Deke here, and we're continuously grateful for the support and the partnership that we have from, in my opinion, the most important partner we have, our Arkansas Game and Fish Foundation. And just want to encourage everybody here and also the public to be on the lookout for an invitation and some announcements around our Hall of Fame, the Arkansas Outdoor Hall of Fame, on August the 24th. So I hope to see y'all there, and very grateful to Deke and his team for the amount of work that goes into that wonderful, wonderful event. I also want to echo what Chairman Neely said and welcome Josh from the governor's office. We're incredibly grateful not only for your participation both yesterday and today, but always very grateful for the wonderful support for conservation that we have in our governor. I also want to point out that August is National Shooting Sports Month. And the public and certainly the people in this room are well aware that we have made an unapologetic and enthusiastic effort to make recreational shooting a higher priority for this agency and bring more recreational shooting opportunities to the public broadly. And so I would encourage the members of the public and also our staff to check out all the fun events and opportunities that we have going on at our Mayflower shooting range this week, which we're glad to operate in partnership with Fiocchi. And I hope to see y'all out there soon, even if it's hot. Yesterday, we heard a couple of guest speakers come and discuss with the commission where they would like to see some of our regs, from smallmouth bass to the opportunity to chase deer with dogs. And later, we also heard from our fantastic trout biologist, Christy Graham, on some of the survey results that we received from our trout anglers throughout the state, to include both residents and non-residents. And it was a good reminder for me just how blessed we are in Arkansas to serve the people that we do. We often say that we're the only state that we know of where you can harvest an alligator and an elk, let alone catch a world-class trout or have a world-class duck hunting experience. And this often leads to not only lots of different expectations, but very high expectations from the public. And it's tempting for our agency to look at that with exasperation. But when you look out throughout Arkansas and the number of visitors that come to Arkansas every single year to enjoy the national treasure that is the natural state, I am repeatedly struck by just how blessed we are to serve so many people, to have what we have in Arkansas, because their high expectations are not only well-deserved, but they make this agency better, and they make the work that we do better. So as we are in our last commission meeting before a open hunting season, and as we look forward to cooler weather, a wonderful deer season and duck season, I know that's where everybody's mind's at. Wild Man's thinking about October crappie fishing. As we look forward to the best parts of the calendar year, I think it's important for us as an agency to recognize and thank our public for their wonderful support for conservation. It is truly what has kept the natural state natural. I also want to recognize a few of our staff members. Kyle Curry presented an outstanding update to our license system yesterday, and this agency has not shied away from the fact that our rollout of our license system was bumpy last year. We know the public felt it, our agency certainly felt it, but I want to thank Kyle for the work ethic that he's brought to the program since he joined us this year, and really the ethos of continuous improvement, as he said repeatedly yesterday. So hats off to Kyle for not only making the system better for us as an agency, but more importantly, making it better for the public, and we look forward to seeing what the hunting season holds relative to our license system. I want to recognize our education staff for their incredibly hard work and their marksmanship challenges across the state. Again, as we've tried to more rightly prioritize recreational shooting throughout Arkansas, it was great to see Education Division reach across bureaucratic boundaries to recreational shooting, recognize this as an agency priority, and continue to offer it throughout the state. Very proud of their hard work, seeing an increase in over 40% in participation in our recreational shooting program. So hats off to education. Lastly, many people know that come July, a lot of people are obviously thinking about cooler weather and hunting, but also that's the time of year when people need new fishing licenses. We've seen a lot of increased foot traffic in our regional offices and in the Little Rock building here for more people wanting to buy their licenses in person. And so just want to give a big thank you to our regional office staff and also the team here in Little Rock to not only sell licenses, but to do so with the high level of customer service that they have. There's an English fellow by the name of Thomas Paine. Thomas Paine, by any measure, was one of this country's founding fathers. And he's most well known for a pamphlet, as they called him back then, called Common Sense. And Thomas Paine said, "The harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph. I love the man that can look and smile in trouble, that can gather strength from distress and grow." It was hard for me not to think about this quote as I reviewed this agency's FY24 annual report, which I hope will be available to the public soon, and want to thank our communications division for their hard work in producing these annual reports. This is our third annual report that we produced as an agency. And make no mistake, these annual reports are not brag sheets. It is solely a motivation by this agency to show transparency and accountability to the public, not only for what we do, but to ensure that we're progressing towards our long-term goals for conservation, both on the natural resource side and on the people side. And so looking back on FY24, the reason I thought of that quote is because it's been an unforgettable year for me to watch this agency address unforeseen challenges and grow from it. And I hope that every member of the public has an opportunity to review this annual report. And I also hope that every member of our staff understands the depth of my gratitude for the amount of work that went into FY24. I'm not going to read, although I would like to, all 12 pages of the annual report, but I am going to cover some highlights. We added 800 acres of public access to our wildlife management area system, an important step towards our overall 5-year goal of 5,000 acres. We initiated renovation on 2 of Arkansas's most important lakes, Lake Wilhelmina and Lake Conway. We improved 270 habitat sites on 19 lakes for fish and our anglers. We reached our 5-year goal of restoring 30,000 acres of terrestrial habitat within Arkansas. We began our renovation on Joe Hogan, our oldest fish hatchery, that has the most need of renovation, which will also serve as the future home for our trophy black bass program. We restored stream connectivity on over 300 miles of Arkansas waterways. We met our goal of establishing more private burn associations throughout Arkansas to get more drip torches and more shovels in the hands of passionate Arkansas conservationists. Our private lands division, our wildlife management division, either directly burned or assisted in burning more than 45,000 acres in Arkansas. And we met our goal of creating 10,000 acres of waterfowl habitat in the form of moist soil. Relative to our Arkansans, we're tremendously proud of our culture division under Tommy and Jason's leadership in raising and stocking more than 10 million fish. It's 10 million fish in Arkansas's public waters. Our operations division had a record-breaking year in capital construction and initiated our infrastructure reset. Our recreational shooting division increased their participation in recreational shooting programs, attracting more than 30,000 people to our Mayflower shooting range, 5,000, I think closer to 5,500 shooters in our youth shooting sports tournament, and more than 3,000 archers in our archery in the schools program. In addition to that, they demonstrated growth by offering the state's first 3D archery tournament as well. We were proud to stock the most genetically advanced and personally exciting Florida bass through Titan Max and Red Hills Fish Hatchery in Lake Monticello. We offered 6,200 acres of public access to private lands through our W. Rice program. And I'm sure folks are getting sick and tired of hearing it, but I'm not going to stop talking about it. Garrett Duggar and his leadership through Private Lands Division in offering non-cost share practices to the public through the Conservation Incentive Program. I also want to recognize the work that our research division did in ensuring that our regs process this year was the most publicly engaged regs process that we've ever had. The last regs process that we went through, our public survey attracted 10,000 responses, and our research division boldly said that's not enough. And so this year, through the hard work of Jessica and AVA, we were able to solicit more than 100,000 responses in our regs process. Also within research, want to emphasize the hard work that our research division has continued to lead in chronic waste and disease research. As we draw near to the end of our 5-year research project with the University of Georgia, we will not only be on the cutting edge of science, which we're proud of, but this is something that we feel like we owe to Arkansans as we try to manage a resource as precious, both to people and to our heritage as our white-tailed deer. Want to recognize our continued work on Green Tree reservoirs. We were ultimately delayed by weather at Earl Best Bayou DeView and Henry Gray Hurricane Lake, but the work continues as we speak, and we hope to bring these Green Tree reservoirs to conclusion, hopefully before duck season. But with every GTR renovation project we do, there is an intense amount of public engagement that we always do, and want to recognize the agency and the public for their considerable participation in this effort. Lastly, our enforcement division had a banner year when it came to major violations. From their work in the turkey woods, from their work in our waterfowl fields and woods, and also with our public safety obligation that we have on Arkansas's rivers and lakes throughout the summer. We could not be more proud of the work that they've done. And I missed one, and I'm certainly not going to miss it. Our family and community fishing program did an outstanding job this year, attracting more than 45,000 anglers at our fishing derbies throughout Arkansas. I will wrap this up, but this agency is really strong. All right, and we're strong not only because of the public that we serve, but the people that serve within this agency, whether they're game wardens or whether they're biologists, and we could not be more grateful for FY24, but we are not going to take a single moment's break to lose focus from FY25. I'll see you on the field.
Thank you, Director. That was a great report, and I think deserves a hand. I just echo the Director's comments. 24, I think we definitely set a lot of milestones, and great work. I can't thank the staff, the Directorate enough for your leadership. We as commissioners sleep well at night knowing that we're in a great place. And so we're not going to step back and take a break. We're going to set new goals and new measurements for 25 and look forward to that. This is going to be a great year. Well, with that, Commissioners, we move into our committee meeting reports. From yesterday, first up, Vice Chairman Doremus, Chair of Budget Committee, will you give your report?
Thank you, Chairman Neely, and good morning, everybody. The Budget Committee met yesterday. We had one discussion item. Our CFO, Emily Shoemate, presented the financial status report. We had one action item. Emily Shoemate requested approval for a budget increase in the amount of $1,102,639.08. This is for budget items that were not expended from the previously approved fiscal year 2023-24 agency budget. It did receive a unanimous do pass. There was no new business, no old business, and we were adjourned.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Doremus. Next, we have Commissioner Finley, Chair of Regulations Committee. Would you please give us your report?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Regulations Committee met yesterday. We had three discussion items: the Animal and Plant Health Inspection, known as APHIS. Service Director Robert Byrd presented an update on the 2023-24 APHIS agreement accomplishments, very insightful. As well as Chrissy Graham presented the results of the statewide trout holder survey, which we had great participation in, and went over very well, very informative. Also, Deputy Director Brad Carner gave an update to the Commission on the Commission's tracking impacts of project goals that accomplish the mission outlined in Natural State Tomorrow. There was no action items, no new business, no old business, and we were adjourned.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Finley. Next, Commissioner Tappan, Chair of Property Management. Would you please give us your report?
Yes, sir, Chairman. The Property Management Committee met yesterday. We had two discussion items. Clinton Johnson provided an update on Little Bayou and their WMA's acquisition project of a potential land from Weyerhaeuser, and discussed the partnership that Quail Forever has helped us and provided. Kevin Sontag also provided an update on capital resource management. There was one action item. Brad Young requested a removal of Captain Stephanie Weatherington's service weapon from inventory and award that to her upon retirement from the agency. There was no new business and there was no old business, and we were adjourned.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Tappan. Next, we have Commissioner Adams, Chair of Education, IT, GIS, and Communications. Would you please give us your report?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Education Committee met yesterday, and there was one discussion item. Kyle Curry updated the commission on recent upgrades to the licensing system and plans for future iterations of the mobile app. And we had one action item. Mary Beth Hatch presented for approval the grant of FY 2024 fine monies to Division of Rural Services for Wildlife Education Grant Programs. The committee gave this a unanimous do pass with no new business, no old business, and we were adjourned.
All right, good report. And finally, Commissioner Jones, Chair of Personnel and Governance Committee, would you please give us your report?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Personnel Governance Committee met yesterday. There were two discussion items. One was John Marks delivered an agency's legal report. The other was Director Austin Booth recognized John Marks' promotion to general counsel position. So congratulations, John, on that. What a great job. There were no action items, no new business, no old business. We did have executive session, and executive session began at 1:42, following a brief recess, and ended at 3:25. No action was taken. We were adjourned.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Jones. And now for business items being brought before the commission in our general budget. Item 5A in this general budget carry forward to fiscal year 2024-25. Ben Batten, you have the floor.
Good morning, all. Thank you very much. Appreciate the time. There is a minute order in your backup to carry forward $1,102,639.08 worth of equipment purchases that are carry forward from last year that were not able to be completed for various reasons. We appreciate your consideration on allowing us to move that budget forward and complete those purchases.
Okay, well, this item does require approval from the Budget Committee, and Vice Chairman DeRamus, was this approved by the Budget Committee?
It was approved.
Okay, I have a motion to approve the request. No second is necessary. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Next, in inventory removal, item 5B, service weapon to Captain Stephanie Weatherington. Colonel Brad Young, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners, Director. Have an inventory removal for your consideration this morning, retiring Captain Stephanie Weatherington after 29 years of dedicated service to the agency. This will be for the award and sale of her service weapons.
Okay, this item requires approval from Property Management Committee. Commissioner Tappan, was this approved by Property Management?
Chairman, yes, it was unanimously approved.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Tappan. I have a motion to approve this request. No second is necessary. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? This motion is approved, and thank you, Colonel Young.
Thank you, sir.
And lastly, in the grant of FY 2024 fine monies, item 5C, Rural Services for Wildlife Education Grant, Mary Beth Hatch, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Director Booth. There is a minute order in your backup seeking approval for Game and Fish to enter into an agreement with the Department of Rural Services to jointly execute the Fine Money Grant Program. We are seeking your approval.
Okay, thank you, Mary Beth. This item requires approval from the Education, IT, GIS, Communications Committee. Commissioner Adams, was this approved by the Property Management?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. This committee gave this a unanimous do pass.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Adams, I have a motion to approve this request. No second is necessary. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And this motion is approved as well. Thank you, Mary Beth. Is there any new business to be brought before the commission? Is there any old business to be brought before the commission? Is there any need for executive session? Before we adjourn, as we often do, and go from one end to the other, I just want to point out, most of y'all will notice Dr. Michelle Evans White is not with us. She has been out with COVID, so please keep her in your prayers. She's recovering, I think, nicely, but certainly that's setback for anybody to get over. So we miss her, and hopefully she'll be back with us up at Petit Jean. I'm sure she will. With that, Commissioner Adams, we'll just come straight to you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My only comment today is just how impressed I was with the presentation earlier, and the things I learned from that were great. So that's the first time I've seen one of those presentations since I've been here, and very eye-opening and very interesting in some of the things they're doing to attack that, especially like the watercraft cleaning stations and some of those things I found very interesting. So I think that's great. It's just going to take everybody doing their part. So I would encourage everyone to read the signs and pay attention, because it's easy to not do that, but to solve this problem, it's going to take everybody.
Absolutely. Mr. Tappan?
Mr. Chairman, I'm always reminded of what talented staff we have, and saw that again yesterday in many great presentations, and I thank their preparation and the director engaging so many levels of our staff. I also have an item about this recent regulatory cycle. The director said it was the, I think, greatest publicly engaged process ever, and it really was, and a great success. Even in spite of that great public engagement, we sometimes, after the process, hear criticism. And I want to put it on the record that one of the criticisms I heard frequently were from my friends in far east Arkansas, far south Arkansas, about our turkey season dates in upcoming 26. And Mr. Chairman, I think that's been set, and I stand behind that fully. But as we do, some season dates maybe have to be looked at in between the every 2-year reg cycle. And I wish that for 26 that we could look at that and more seriously consider. You know, we've seen, I think it's a 33% improvement in harvest numbers from the bottom that we experienced in this decade. But yet we've given no days back to that hunter that sacrificed to shorten the season, to go to one turkey that lost a fall turkey season. So, you know, that's something to put out there, because this group is always challenged about providing more opportunity to outdoors people. And that's just something I think, from the criticism I heard from the public, I would say I wish that we could look at in the future. So anyway, it was a great process overall, and I commend all involved. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Tappan. And yes, we're doing some good work with our turkey, and we've got studies ongoing now that will continue to help guide us as we look to the future. Start right back here with Commissioner Doremus to my left, Vice Chair.
Well, no one's mentioned that next Saturday is the Arkansas Game and Fish Foundation Outdoor Hall of Fame banquet. So I know I will be there. I'm sure my fellow commissioners will be there, and it'll be a really great time celebrating the new inductees and all getting together. So excited for Deke and his crew on that. And also, Chris, you and I yesterday were talking before the meeting about drawing for dove fields. You know, we talked about this our last meeting without a hunting season this year. So I think that the application process for those draws ends tomorrow. Is that correct? And there are 2 out at Camp Robinson, and the other one is at Frog Bayou, correct? Anyway, there's another one on there. It's on our website. Go check it out. Apply for a dove permit. Get out on opening day. It's going to be really great.
All right, thank you, Vice Chair Doremus. Mr. Finley?
Well, Mr. Chairman, it's always exciting when August meeting wraps up, because we know our next meeting will be into the football season. We will be deep into dove season and have just finished our very first velvet season. And which will be exciting for Arkansas to get a report on that and see how that's going. But
And I think Commissioner Jones might try to get one with a spear, too. I mean, just to top that off.
It's going to be the first one.
Yeah.
be the first, and we'll certainly broadcast that in the next, well, actually, he'll have his own book.
I think next we ought to have a spear throwing session next month.
I thought it was a
We can put an apple on Chris's head.
Exactly.
And see, yeah.
Chairman's.
All right, this is getting way out of control.
Yeah.
With that, I'll wrap up.
All right, Commissioner Jones?
Yes, like we said, we're looking forward to our velvet season. We've got dove season coming up. Our first ever velvet season, September 7th, 8th, and 9th. Then also the alternate weapons that we're having during muzzleload. Now, if you hadn't gotten your 45-70 or your straight wall cartridge, you need to get out there and get it. I hear they're very, very difficult to get. I commend Chairman Tappan also about the turkey season. Just as you've been hearing about that, I challenge the commission too. Been getting a lot of calls from Lower Arkansas River. I know that the Conservation League, they lost Wargo Landing, which is one of the few places that you can put in on the Lower Arkansas River. So all the areas around Arkansas City, like Village, they have hardly no access to the river now. So I think that's a challenge that we need to really look at in the future.
Okay, it certainly is. Mr. Caldwell.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to echo Commissioner Adams about Matt's presentation. I think that was amazing. And I also think it's great for the public to see, as was mentioned, that besides, as you said, beyond the hook and the bullet, but how detrimental just unintentional negligence could be to our ecosystem, because as one that does often take a trailer from one lake to another, when I saw that sign, it's been in the last month there at the hatchery, it really made me think, and that is something that could just have such detriment to future generations and to our, just by no ill intent. And so I think I greatly appreciate the work that you and your team are doing to combat that, but also that the staff is doing to make the public aware. So hats off to you.
Thank you, Commissioner Caldwell. I echo a lot of the things that have been mentioned already, but yesterday was just a great day of presentations. It really was. It started out, Clint Johnson gave us a quail report that just really was exciting to see the work. And as we've talked about before, at Game and Fish, we're the tip of the spear, but it takes the partners. Weyerhaeuser has been a great partner in coming alongside us. They were the recipients of just last month of at our landowner awards banquet that Garrick and their team put on. They had two great projects. So again, they're looking at a deal that could help join alongside some of our efforts down in South Arkansas and Drew County to create an even larger impact for us in quail management. Those are the kind of projects that can help move the needle. As long as I've been on the commission, we've been trying to see quail habitat restored. It's just been a hard road to go, a hard fight. As we know, quail require large-scale management. It's not just small efforts on little tracts that can really bring quail back. But this is certainly a big step in the right direction. That was a great presentation, and excited to see where that's going to go in South Arkansas. And then we had, the track system that we're looking at to help us as we were given by Kevin and Brad Carner, our ability to go forward at this agency and keep up with all of the inventory, equipment, projects, data, our management systems at large through these GIS and software programs that we're going to be implementing over the next year or two as that data is all entered in. It's going to give y'all the ability to be much more efficient at your jobs, and that's a great step, and very excited to see that come along. Again, John Mark, I issue my congratulations to you as being named chief of our legal counsel. We're excited for you and legal, and wish you and your team the best. With that, remember next month we will be in Petit Jean. It's a road show, so we're looking forward to traveling out. We're going to have fun visiting some of our WMAs and work up in that area. enjoying the scenery up there and having a good time. And with that, commissioners, we're adjourned.